Welcome, hello everyone. I'm delighted to be here. It's nice to see you. As Brandon mentioned, this month's subject is money. And I thought, well, how am I going to tackle that? Because I am no expert when it comes to money. So I thought if we unpack that a little bit to talk about commerce and creativity, then maybe that's a little bit more relevant for us. But when Brandon mentioned it to me, I started laughing because I said, you know, creative directors spend money, right? And then if we don't have money, then we try to find the funds to be able to launch the ideas that we do have. So what I thought I would do is give you some insight into why I shouldn't be talking to you today, because money is really not my specialty. So in classic Letterman fashion, I'm not a financial advisor. And in fact, if I give you any advice inadvertently, just don't call the National Post, don't take it to the bank, because it is not my expertise. Number two, I'm emotional about money. And I don't know if this comes from childhood, but whether it's billing, estimating, creating budgets. You know, when you move from budgets where you have K's behind the number and then you have M's behind the number, it's just a whole different level of freak out. And the number one reason why I shouldn't be talking to you today about money is I can't add. And I hate math. I've never used that left side of my brain, and it's always been, you know, focusing on the right side. But then that created me to pause for a moment, and I thought, well, maybe if I look at it from a different perspective, what can I share with you today? So there's three reasons. And the first one is really about the unexpected journey. And I have had an unexpected journey in my career. And I started with a design studio, and then I went to agencies, and then I went to a software company. It was a multinational company called Intuit. And then I ended up in banking. And if you ever said to me at the beginning of my career that I would end up in the category of financial institutions, I probably would have laughed at you. But my very first job, when I was minutes old in the industry, I worked on a brand. In fact, brand didn't exist back then. It was called a logo with collateral. So just for those of you who were born, you know, after 1994. And it was called the Bank of Alberta. And yes, Virginia, there was something called the Bank of Alberta. And I remember asking the creative director at the time, I said, you know, what does something like this cost? Because I thought, it must be an awful lot of money. Is it $5,000? Is it $8,000? And I thought $10,000. You know, that's got to be a high amount. So we're talking way back when the earth was green. And he looked at me and he said, you know, Carolyn, we're probably about the 70K mark right now. And I remember thinking that there was this convergence of commerce and creativity, and it collided in that very moment for me, and it really imprinted in my brain. And I put my head in my hands and I shook my head and I went, oh my God, am I ever in the right industry? So number two insight into what I could probably bring forward today is I'm emotional about money. Now, you might have seen that on the previous list. But the interesting thing is I had a creative director who taught me, build out the side of you that is not as strong as the other side. And so I really wanted to build out the business side. So the side that makes me uncomfortable, the side that I'm anxious about. So I've had some very good mentors to be able to listen to what they say and what they offer. So even though I'm emotional about money, I've learned how to manage it. Number one reason, I'm a Taurus. Anyone born in May? Anyone born in May? So with your birthday, do you remember they kind of give you, here's an occupation that you might be very good at. And for me, apparently, I would make a very good surgeon, or, wait for it, I'd make a very good banker. So that's a little serendipitous, working in the category of banking. But lo and behold, I should probably be working in the creative field. So for you folks that are Taurus, it's good news. I thought I'd put a rating up for this presentation. So it is restricted. If you're under 17, you need a parent or guardian because strong language will be used. And I am known to go off topic. So, so I've done many things in my career, and I probably haven't been in the witness protection program, but that could change after this one. So what I'd like to share with you today is that notion of commerce and creativity and unpacking that. And I'm very curious about creative currency and how we get it and really what it is. And so I thought I would give you some insights from my unexpected journey and what keeps you up at 3 in the morning, what the successes were, what the challenges were, and then kind of walk you through a case study on team building and how we got that team creative currency. But I just wanted to pause there because I want to ask you a question. Imagine this was a creative brief. And what do you think was the first brand to combine commerce and creativity? So 3 points on the creative brief. They wanted to be global. They wanted leadership. They really wanted to represent the corporation throughout all the countries that they went to. So just, throw your hand up, just if you wanted to take a stab at that. First brand. Close. Go back about 2,000 years. Close. SPQR. Has anyone been to Italy? For the Senate and the people of Rome. So you still see that brand today. Like when you go to Italy, you'll see it in the sewer system because they were innovative when it came to waterworks. And interestingly enough, Mussolini tried to reintroduce the emblem in World War II, if you know your history, and he wanted to brand it, the new Roman Empire for his dictatorship. But then you fast forward 2,000 years, and you might have the same creative brief, and you go, well, nothing's really changed. They want the same thing. I mean, they want, global representation, to share leadership, to combine that commerce and creativity and instill the culture in that brand. So I think we're all just dealing with the same creative brief. It's just kind of over and over again. So let's kick it off with creative currency. And you can take some vernacular that you have in the financial institution industry, and you say, well, what is the equity that you have? What is your stock value? What is your investment strategy in your creativity, in your skill set? And are you wealthy or are you broke? What is the level of your account? So in exploring that, I thought that perhaps there are 3 levels to creative currency. And the first level might be around the personal. And this is just a hypothesis. The personal is really about your career, your education, the mentors that you have around you that starts to build on your journey. So if you look around at the people that you're sitting with, you might say, will I be connected with these people in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Because you can always reach back to them when you do have a conundrum that you need to solve. And that's happened many times in my career, is reach out to those folks that you get. And then I think, well, maybe there's a second level, which is team. And so there's collaboration when it happens to team, with teamwork. So the team is only as strong as the individual. So if there's a lot of stock and equity in your creativity as an individual, the team is much stronger for that, and they can start to develop out their creative currency. And it also is about exposure, because you expose yourself to new ideas as a team, you digest them, you reinterpret them, you create new ideas, but then it takes bravery to expose them and have the critique and have the response there. But that's how you get that currency, is through that. And then perhaps there's a third level, and all this ladders up, and it's stronger as you go up, which is the mass collective. And the mass collective is really about diversity. So everyone in this room contributes to the health of our creative community that we have in this city. And it also starts to build out legacy. And so it doesn't matter if you're a chef, if you have a food truck, if you're a musician, we're all better for it. And the interesting things that we do as individuals also contribute to the community that we have. And then I thought, well, there's the art and the science to creative currency. So this is just a way to look at perhaps the art of the individual. And one of the elements is around talent. You have that core talent that you express and that you build on. And the other notion that I had was around language. And I put language in here rather than communication because I think it is harder to do. And I've learned the hard way that the language that you use in agencies and design studios does not translate to the language that you use in corporations. And so when you're in a CEO suite or when you're talking to VPs, the language that you have and the vernacular and the words that you pick, you have to be very thoughtful about conveying your ideas. Because the last thing you want them to say is, oh, it's the creative group coming in. Isn't that nice? You want to be at the table having the conversation. And that does happen. So you have to learn how to adapt. And the third thing is contribution. And contribution can happen on very small levels. It can happen on one-on-one, or it can happen on a very macro level. And but I think that's what makes up the art of the individual to develop your creative currency. You can put your own in there, but that's just an observation. And then there's the science to building out the currency. And it's that side that makes me anxious, which is the business side, because that's not my natural habitat. So you say, well, how does that look? And this has been drilled into my head, whether it's agency owners or whether it's corporations: time, people, money. Repeat: time, people, money. So whenever you build teams, this is what my focus has been, is in that area about where am I going to spend my money, what type of talent am I going to get, and those all have to ladder up to business strategies. So you could say that's the science of it. And then I took a stab at where we have come from in the city of Edmonton, because I am a bit of a history buff. I love to study history. And you go, well, in order to know where you're going, you need to know where you've come from. And I think that the landscape for our city has been developed by people that have come before us, because then you can identify opportunities, but you can also identify gaps. And you can say, where do we want to go? So I had a great conversation with folks like Frank Calder, and there's a fellow named John Francis. He owned FWJ in the 70s. But there were agencies here in the 50s. I mean, I had no idea about that. And I asked Frank, I said, how did agencies come about in Edmonton? And his observation was basically it was a combination between businessmen and designers getting together, which essentially is an early model of account team and creative team. So I'm just building this out. If I've missed someone on here, please forgive me. It's a work in progress. But I thought it's good to know where we come from. And then I thought, someone asked me, well, what about measuring creative currency? Is that even a possibility? And as you can see, this is a very complex slide, and I spent an awful lot of money benchmarking this. This was done by Credo Coffee House of Benchmarking. So I think what's happened with our creative currency as a collective is it has gone up, because each one of you have contributed to that. And that group of people from the 50s, believe it or not, has set the tone. Imagine this conversation 30 years from now, and you're sitting here. What will you have contributed? So I think there's a great healthy environment for us. And there was a time, believe it or not, when people left this city to go get the experience that they felt that they couldn't get here. But I think that's changed. I think people are staying here, and there's some really great entrepreneurs that are really building a sensibility that you can create and love what you do in the place that you live. So I think that's very good news. However, I think the health of our creative currency is also precarious, and it can change like that. And that happened on January 21st, 2013. What happened that day? Oh, that was the day Oprah was given a set of balls. So it's only up there as an example to say that the higher the optics, the higher the risk of branding and the optics of who we are. And I would encourage anyone, whether it's a dignitary, a celebrity, a politician, it doesn't matter. There are so many wonderful creative people in the city that even 5 minutes with the people in this room could have developed some very interesting and innovative ideas to be able to do that. Now you take that from the lens outside. Imagine if Boston had done that and you heard the story there. You go, what, doesn't suit the brand of what is coming outside of that city. I won't dwell on that image too long. So I wanted to shift gears and talk about team building and building a team within a corporation. But essentially, let's call it a startup, for lack of a better word, because having a creative team inside of a corporation, in fact, any corporation, is a bit of a paradox. And there's challenges there. And so it's just one gal's journey through that experience, because there are many ways that you can set up teams. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. You kind of learn as you go. But hopefully you have mentors along the way that you can tap into. And so with anything, you start with a creative brief. And the creative brief for this company, which was a financial institution, was brand awareness and customer engagement. Okay, I know that's probably pretty ubiquitous, but if I give you any more, there might be a witness protection program that I have to employ there. But whatever team you build, you have to truly understand what the strategies are of that company, because you have to help accomplish those goals. You don't just set up the team for creativity's sake, although I'd like to do that, but that's not a possibility. So imagine this in context of a job interview. This is your job interview to say, what type of team would you build for those business strategies? So, and I'll outline what the strategies were from the company. They wanted run the business. Okay, that's cool. That's your job. You have to run the business for over 230 branches in the province and all the materials. We'd like to do a new brand. Awesome. Okay, I think we can do that. A new .com property. Now, my flag goes off because that says to me security and banking. Okay, I'm emotional about money. I'm already freaked out. So that's a bit of a red flag there. And I had come from Intuit. We worked on 17 web properties in French and English, and I don't speak French, so je suis désolée. But anyways, so, and if any of you are working with companies where their desire is to move from a hard-coded site to an ECMS platform, that is a challenge, because you are reconstructing teams, you are creating new entities that need to exist with content strategy and web, and there's also politics involved with that. But it is an exciting journey. It's one of the best things that I've learned from. Next thing is an airport. I don't know if any of you have seen the new terminal at the airport, but they said, okay, you need to skin an airport. All right, looking through my bag of tricks, never done that, don't know how to do that. One piece of advice I will give you: when someone asks you to do something you've never done, you go, yeah, I can do that, smile, and then run away and freak out, and then figure out how to get it done. But always never let them see a sweat. And then the last one was TV. We had to do some TV for some hockey players. Okay, cool, I'll sign up for that. But if you go back to the science of creative currency, time, people, money, right? Those are the questions that you need to ask. So how much time do I have? This is your job interview. You haven't even signed on yet. You're just trying to scope out the project. Okay, that's ongoing. I got a brand, you want it in 6 months? Okay, that's cool. You got a .com property, that's 3 months. That's the first time I've ever said that's not a possibility. But by the way, you need the brand first, but you want that later, but you got the web first. Okay, and then you want an airport, so that's 3 months, but I need the brand, but I don't have the brand, so what do I do at the airport? Now I'm freaked out about that. And then I got TV, but I will let that live on its own. So, the .com property is we'll do it blue. So then you say, okay, if that's time, tell me about the people. So there was an incumbent design team, and they were working quite wonderfully on run the business. Okay, tell me about the brand team. No, you have to build that yourself. Okay, 6 months, and I don't know the banking category. Okay, I'll figure that out. .com, you have no people. You have to build that team yourself. Okay, so help me understand the content strategy team. What's content? Airport. what I did on that one was I thought, well, I have to reverse engineer that because I have to understand what we're capable of at the airport from an environmental perspective. I'm a frustrated architect, and I'd love to design spaces. I'd love to just go back to school and be an architect. But so we wanted to honor the space rather than just slapping up, billboards like HSBC. And we knew that was the one thing. Airport branding. Did you know that they have a team out of London and that's all they do? They just do the branding for airports. That's their job. So we did, the airport, you had 3 months to do that. And then TV, I said, okay, well, I've done TV in the past. I can do that. That's kind of a no-brainer. But we had money, and we had to be very thoughtful about the amount of money that we were spending in each spot. So time, people, money, that's how I deciphered, am I ready for this position? Is it something that I can learn from? Are there people there that I can learn from? So what's your next step? You go for a run, and you're deciding, am I running away from it or am I running towards it? But the interesting thing is, on the unexpected journey, you have mentors. And so this is the way that I unpacked it, and I approached it with my personal strategy, because you want to be able to say, I am ready for this, and have some homework done before you sign up for the job, because failure is not an option when you do something like this. So the first one is identify the risks. I knew the airport was a big risk because it was high optics, and plus it was just had to be done very quickly, and I didn't understand the environment quite yet. The .com property, which I've already touched about that, and brand, because it was just so fast. So the cool thing about that is when you do a brand, you're delighted to hear when the company says, we're going to upgrade our product. And that's what the bank was doing. So that was one of the reasons that I took into consideration for being able to take this. Because if you're skinning a new brand on a corporation but they don't change the product, you might as well put lipstick on a pig. Because you really want to be able to have that upgrade in that product offering. So that was kind of exciting. And then you have to make decisions. And this looks really good on paper, and everyone goes, oh yeah, you have to make decisions. But when you get into a leadership position, whether it's as senior creative talent or senior marketing people, or even at CEO, the most important thing a leader needs to do is make decisions. And it's not the easy thing when you factor in people and time and money, because there are difficult conversations to be had. So if you don't make a decision, you have inertia. Your job is just to move the project forward. Your job is to move the ideas forward. And sometimes you make good decisions and sometimes you don't. But you have to be able to manage those, whichever path you choose to go down. So what do? The thing that I said was, I can't do all of this on the inside. So we have to be able to share it and look to our partners outside. And so what we did is I said, well, okay, run the business. That's for all the marketing materials. So we'll keep that on the inside. That makes sense. That they know the brand, they can do that. Brand was kind of fun, because then you can say, well, now we can collaborate with freelancers. So why don't we do that? So we had some group of folks from in the community, and then our internal team, and we had an awful lot of fun with that. .com was, I had a call that I made to be able to decide if this job could be done. Because to do a financial institution website with all that security, even though it was just front-end stuff, you had to put guys in a room 24/7 for a period of time. And so there was one person that I had met on my journey about 15 years ago, and I called him and I said, do you think it's possible to put a team together in a week? We have no web requirements, we have money, but there's no contingency in time, and there's no contingency in not delivering. We can't go over that. I said, can you help me build a team? And I said, you have 48 hours. And he called back, he said, yeah, we can do that. And so as soon as I heard that, I thought maybe I can do this. So we started on the outside with the team, and then that would give us time to build the internal team, give the keys to them so that they can run with it. Airport, I'm a big believer in small teams that are agile. You can prototype, you can learn from them, you can make your mistakes, you can reiterate, you can move on. We had a senior art director, we had myself, and we had a production artist and a photographer. That was the creative team that did the airport. We did 30 jetways, both inside and out. And we, like I said, we reversed engineered that, learned what we were capable of doing in that space, and then we went back and said, okay, let's brainstorm about how we can interpret that. And then TV, we produced that internally. So we had experience on our team that we were able to reach out and talk to the producers and get that done. So that was fun. So that was cool. So how do we do? Well, to go from 0 to 100, we ended up with a digital team. Look at that funny little pixel thing. Anyways, so we had a digital team. We built it to 7. And so they run the .com property. They're doing an absolutely fantastic job. Then we have a creative team. We ended up with 9 people there, and they're doing all the print material. They're doing all the stuff for the branches. They put stuff on the streets with the marketing. And then the key to success, though, is the content strategy team, because when we built the .com site, we started with content strategy. Forget about architecture, forget about that. Let's understand the needs of the business, and we'll take it from that tactic. But these 2 gals, they update content on a daily basis, and that's the type of site that we built. So it's relevant content, in-the-moment content that we can respond to. And I think it's very important for a financial institution because you need to be able to respond just in case something does happen, right? So the creative currency that was built for this team was really proved out by the projects that they were able to produce. And so that gave them the street cred to be able to have the understanding and the involvement from our stakeholders within the organization. And it was a very good journey for all of us. That's for sure. So how did we do? So we ran the business. We put the ads out there. I'll just give you examples of each one. We launched a brand. Some of you might have seen the billboards and the transit boards. I commend our CEO, Dave Mowat, for putting his personal email on there, but I think that was the element that made it successful, and he actually answered every one of those emails. We did launch that website. I gained 8 pounds on that website. and a couple of gray hairs. We did do the airport. That did get installed, and that was probably one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on, the one that I had no idea how to do. And just connecting with the people who are way smarter than I am, who really understood what we were able to do there. And the last thing was the hockey TV. So we produced this TV, and then we get a lockout. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? So we're sitting on a pack of TV that we can't release. So good news is the lockout went away, and we were able to launch some TV. So we have one spot. You might have seen Giordano with the Green Men. He checks the Green Men. It actually has 60K hits on YouTube, so I was quite surprised. But there's one spot that we're airing later in March, so I thought I'd give you a sneak peek of that. How do I do that? Yeah. And think Battle of Alberta, and there's a whole social strategy around this one. So our team brainstormed these, we produced them, we worked with Stir Films out of Calgary, and we worked with Jordan Eberle and Mark Giordano. So the web team that we built out, they created this wonderful online experience. You can go vote for the ending. We shot 2 endings, and actually, it looks like a little score clock, whoever you vote on, and then the bank will also donate to the charity that the players have picked. So, and then we'll deploy who wins. So, at the end of the day, what's the secret sauce to creative currency? And I think the unexpected journey has taught me that education and sharing what you know, don't hold so tight onto it, but be able to share it out, builds up your creative equity and elevates your stock value. Share what you know, share what you learn. And with that, I'll end with a story, a real quick story about Michael Eisner. I had the opportunity to see him speak in Montreal last year. And he came into the room and he was speaking to a group of creative folks like you are. And this is the CEO of Disney. I mean, you know, talk about convergence of commerce and creativity. He embodied that. And he looked at all of us and he said, "I'm scared of every one of you." Now that got our attention. He said, "Do you know what it's like to sit on the other end of a table from someone presenting an idea, and you have to take the risk and decide whether to invest millions of dollars in that idea?" And I never thought of that because I've always been on the other side of the table. And he said, never underestimate what you do, never undersell what you do, because your creativity is your currency. Invest in it. And I thought those were good words to live by. So with that, I'll pass it back to Brandon.
Well, we'll open
Thank
the
you.
floor for questions. So the floor is open for questions, and let's just back and forth. I'm sure people have things to ask Carolyn.
Did it ever come up in your brand discussions with ATV that they're not allowed to say the word bank?
Yes, because it's actually in the charter.
Right.
So imagine branding a bank and you can't say the word bank. You can only say financial institution. So, yeah, we struggle with that. Yeah.
Did they ever talk about their history, why they were a bank?
We didn't know, we didn't get into that.
I have a question about through the team building process. Really, when you in such a short period of time and you had to acquire actually a few very talented resources, did you have any missteps? And how early did you and if you did, I mean, how did you deal with those and shuttle people off and that kind of thing? How did you actually, I guess, vet the people that you needed for your teams?
I'll start with the one strategy that I thought would be advantageous was for each one of those deliverables is assign a key person to each one of them. So the run of the business has a main person, the brand had a main person, the TV had a main person, and even the .com property. The one thing that I did ask for is I need someone who can speak IT, I need someone who can speak marketing and knows the business, because I'm coming in on day one and I don't know the category and I got to deliver this thing. So one of the key things was those people. Now the trick was finding those people, and we looked outside of Alberta. We looked inside of Alberta. So you struggle with finding that right talent, and I mean we classically, like anyone else, we go through the resume process and we go through word of mouth. But then you also have to pair them with personalities. You know, who's going to work with who, and who's going to be bring a different perspective. Because the last thing you want to do is layer a team with the same perspectives, so that they all bring something different to the table. In regards to missteps, I mean, we were running by, you know, the seat of our pants. I don't think there was time for missteps. Probably the team is much better to answer that question than I am, but I think we were all in the moment working pretty hard, and just it was an exciting journey for the 2 years that we did that. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, thank you. That's right.
Others? Out.
How often do you think, like, so coming off the tail of that project, how often do you think a brand should just make the next evolution? Because you constantly evolve, obviously, but when do you need to take stock again to see if you're on track? Could it be a year to you?
The question is, when do you reassess for brand development, right? So because it's fresh, it's probably not going to be reinvented anytime soon. It's just going to be built on. When we worked on the Intuit brand, I mean, Howard, you and I did that. That was developed by Lippincott out of New York. They taught us that a corporation will rebrand on average every 13 to 16 years. Now that might be a reinvention, or it just might be a tweak. So the thing about the financial institution is they kind of did it a lot. And so we're hoping this one sticks and just be able to build on that. And also migrating the audience. You know, you want to be able to open up to new audiences, which is a younger demographic. So that's the next step, that's the next iteration. Mr. Gilroy?
Looking, given your long and varied career, looking forward, what do you see for yourself in the next few years? What interests you? What compels you?
Did in issues management, actually, and injustices that we see in our community. So I think it's kind of using my creativity for good and not evil. Last thing I want is to say, you know, she created a lot of junk mail. And working with, you know, I had an opportunity to teach photography to homeless kids. And it was probably the most meaningful thing that I've ever done in my career, because I learned so much about them and I learned so much about myself. So I would like to do more of that. And just, I love to work on projects where it is creating the vision and brainstorming, and just with people who love what they do. I think that's what makes me happy. It's not, it's always about the work, but really it's about the pleasure that you get from collaboration and being able to have the diversity and share. So, yeah. Anyone else? Hello?
Carolyn, during your design process, did you reference your banking clients so directly from the public to get feedback?
Oh yeah, there's an internal research group within ATB, so they're capable of quantitative and qualitative analysis and competitive analysis. So we had a lot of data. It was like, show me the data and I'll show you the money. So our briefs, you know, by the time we got to the marketing team, sometimes we didn't have enough data. We wish that we had more, but a lot of that was able to be extracted from an internal research group to be able to analyze. In fact, if we wanted questions asked, I mean, it would be turned around in 24 hours. The stuff that we did on the airport, we kind of put these factoids on the airport, and the, you know, the design strategy and the advertising strategy around that is that we know Alberta best. And so those factoids came from our research department. One of them was Alberta produces enough malt barley to make 16 billion bottles of beer. How cool is that? So there's customers that we have that are agricultural. So it's kind of an insight into Alberta.
When you were pitching things back up to leadership, like up the chain, what was discussed first? The risk of the creative or the cost of the creative? What did they...
It was always the risk.
Yeah?
It was always the risk.
They didn't care about that.
Oh no, they always care about cost. It's a financial institution.
No, but I know, you know, like, what do they get hung up on, right? And
it was about the risk. We had creative that was way more innovative and riskier, and it didn't run. And so what you saw in the streets was a very different version than what we had developed internally. So, and that's it's risk management assessment, what they're prepared to do, and that's okay because they're the client.
yeah.
So we have to partner with them in that. Otherwise, they say, well, that's nice. Maybe you can go to another corporation. So, anyways. Christy?
So how did you manage your personal life aside from having all of this stuff put on you all? Did you just work straight for the next 2 years? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? People can call you at home. You know, your phone always ringing because there's all these different teams and they're going to you, or how does that work in terms of you being the touchstone of this big team of all 5 teams of ATV? How do you manage that?
I knew, you know, the fellow that I interviewed with, he said, you know, you'll get your life back in 2 years. He said, are you prepared to do that? And having worked it into it, I mean, it was equally as busy there. It's just that I was now in a different level of leadership that was being asked of me at ATB. And so, but the job was really exciting, And I took it for that reason, because of that convergence of commerce and creativity. And plus it was an Alberta brand, it was in our backyard. And I thought, geez, that just doesn't happen too often. So the hours, 6 to 11, it was plus weekends, and it was tough. There's no denying that. So you have to make choices, and some of my choices were wrong, because you have family at home and you have work, but you also have these to deliver, and you somehow try to manage it. And I'm not good at managing that. And I think to your point, I think one of our missteps was you can have a creative director lead the team, and I've gone back and forth a couple of times. But then they're in meetings all the time, and they're not doing creative work. And so then you don't get the creative leadership. So then you go, is my creative director spending the right amount of time on the right things? The answer is no, they're not. So we've done other models where you have a creative manager, and we did that at Intuit, where we had a creative manager and a creative director. They work very hard together. The creative manager manages all the admin. You just contribute to the performance reviews. It gets all that stuff off your plate so that you can focus on that. We didn't do that till the second year. By the time you're running around kind of processing 100 things at the same time. So that's another model of building a team, and I've done it both ways. And oddly enough, I keep going like this, because I go, oh yeah, creative manager, we're doing, no, we'll do the creative thing, and then, so there's advantages to both. You just have to be what's best for the company and what's best for your team.